What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Did y'all see that? What?
Let's just throw Scream 6 in there for like
It was good.
movie. It was really good. The best of the franchise, in my opinion, since the first one.
Yeah. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Crazy Ant Farm. We're super excited to continue trying crazy things here on the podcast. And man, oh man, this week we will be discussing all the different streamers and how they are doing when it comes to television. Because, you know, we talk about the streaming wars, but what does that actually mean? Because we really haven't seen a lot of huge films come out of the streaming services. Of course, we've seen many big budgeted films come out of the streaming services, but they're definitely doing more successful on the television side of things. So we're going to be breaking down all the nitty gritty stuff for each streamer and what we think is working, what's not working, and what's just there, what the stuff on the page says, man. The data. What's the data say?
Yes. I can't. The data says a lot, and we're gonna dive into it. And we don't always agree with what the data says. I have some thoughts on data that says this about a certain streamer that I just totally disagree with, and we're gonna dive into that. And I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about. But I'm excited for this. I think this is gonna be a lot of fun because, as everybody knows who listens to this podcast, we watch a lot of shit. And we're going to dive into why we watch it, where we watch it, and should we watch it. I think that's going to be a fun, man. I think it's going to be a blast.
Right, that's right, man. That's right. All right, let's get into it. Hello, everyone. So you want to start a podcast but have no idea where to start? Well, Crazy Ant Media is here to help you. We want to assist you finding your VFE. What's VFE, you ask? Well, that is your voice, your format, and your equipment. These are the three biggest essentials you need to start your podcast. All those hours watching nonstop YouTube videos or all those random website links, those are done. Just hop on a Zoom call with us and we'll talk about everything you need to know to create your own podcast and find your voice. Plus, we will send you home with a 12-page packet over everything we just discussed. It's very in-depth. It is definitely a must-need while trying to start your first podcast. Contact us at info@crazyantmedia.com today so that you can start finding your podcast voice for tomorrow. What's up, guys? Oh my goodness. Like I said, welcome back to another episode 281 this week. Woo! And of course, your host with the most, myself, J. Logan Austin, aka J-Lo Fantastic. And then, of course, Dustin M. Bergman, aka The Mouse.
What's up?
Man, we're super excited about today's episode. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. But before we jump into everything, please be sure to leave a rating on this show, comment below, and tell us what you actually think about this podcast. Because if you didn't know, when you comment, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff, it helps this podcast get seen by more people who enjoy entertainment news, but especially those who enjoy or who are trying to break into the entertainment industry. That's what we're here to do at Crazy Ant Media.
Yeah.
Lend a helping hand to everybody breaking into it. But before we jump into everything industry news related, of course, be sure to head over to our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where you can start rocking the latest and greatest Crazy Ant Media gear. We got shirts, we got hats, we got teddy bears, we got backpacks, anything and everything for everyone. That is for sure. But this was a big one, so we had to put it at the beginning of the industry news before we jump into our newness, that is ITCAFpodcast. Rest in peace. We lost a legend in the entertainment industry a couple days ago, and I'm talking about David Lynch. Man, oh man, writer and director who radicalized American film with the dark, surrealistic, artistic versions of film like Blue Velvet and Mulholland Drive. The network and television show, of course, Twin Peaks. The legend has passed away. He was 78. Lynch revealed in 2024 that he had been diagnosed with emphysema.
Yep.
And after a lifetime of smoking, he was a very famous smoker, and would likely not leave his house or direct any longer. After years spent as a painter and maker of the short animated and live action films, Lynch burst onto the scene with his 1977 feature debut, Eraserhead, a
Yes.
terrific black humored work that became a disturbing fixture on the midnight movie circuit. His auteur and um, uncompromising style quickly won the afternoon of the Hollywood and international movie making establishment. A four-time Oscar nominee, Lynch received the honorary Oscar of a Lifetime Achievement in 2020. Lynch was married 4 times and is survived by 2 daughters and 2 sons. But yes, definitely a big loss in the entertainment industry.
I mean, without doubt, I think anybody old school or just getting into the industry knows the name, has seen the movies, and I mean, this guy was revolutionary. And when you're talking about a filmmaker that's 19, 20 years old, still talking about this man and his movies, and can hold a conversation back and forth with a 50-year-old who knows the movie. It says a lot about the filmmaker and the art and how powerful it was. And so, yeah, it's a big loss. I think there's a lot of young filmmakers out there that you can tell were heavily influenced by David Lynch's work and art. And yeah, it's going to be felt, and I hope they do a nice tribute. I mean, not to take away from all the others that we've lost this, but I hope that the Oscars do a nice tribute to Lynch, because I really do think, this is a man who's earned that over a long period of time, and he's just revolutionary and just a legend. But now, as Logan teased at the top of the show, it is time to dive into streaming services. There's some good, there's some bad. Okay, and let's be honest about it, Zaslav. There's some stuff that's just downright ugly. And we're going to talk about all of it. And we can't not start with The Mouse House. You guys know we love Disney. It's no secret if you're a fan of this show. And if you're not, welcome to the show. We're big fans of Disney. So obviously we were going to discuss Disney Plus and Hulu. You could throw in ESPN Plus also, because that is a part of the streaming, but we want to primarily focus on, and I think, content that's not sports oriented, but we will bring up sports because it is playing heavily into some of these streamers. Let's dive into it, man. Obviously, the good is that the Mouse House has so much freaking intellectual property that it can play off of, right? 100 years of Disney stuff, Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, just you name it, it's got it, and it's generating content from it, right? And that's a good thing, right? I mean, we got the Daredevil, Born Again upcoming, constant. You got the Grogu movie coming, and just like, that's a good thing, right? I think pulling from a library of over 100 years of content and having a library full of pop culture content recent over the past 20 or 30 years, that is huge when you're trying to build something to get somebody to watch, right?
Well, it's very interesting because if you look at different streaming services that don't have like the massive already established IP like Netflix and Apple TV, because, Disney is basically piggybacking off of everything that they had in the past.
Sure.
Which is not a bad thing whatsoever. So it's very interesting to try to navigate if you're another streamer who is getting your feet wet, just starting out and trying to build that audience and build new content. Because I think if it wasn't for the historically established IP, take away Marvel, take away Star Wars, and take away all of the other big things that Disney Plus has going on their service, I don't honestly think it would be competing with Netflix. I think Netflix would be soaring past all of the other streamers if you just taken away Lucasfilm and Marvel Studios.
I would agree with you, right? Like, there's definitely, we can't say that there's no original series, because they're pumping out original series, but the original series is based on IP. It might be original, but it's coming from an established IP that they own. So where is the risk taking? They're not taking any risk. They're putting out new content that nobody's seen before. It's original. It's set in a new time, or it's introducing a new character, but it is being generated from legacy content. And for me, I'm right there with you. I feel like you have to take risks. Give us a show that has nothing to do with anything Disney's ever done before. Pump out something so original you wouldn't even realize it was from the Mouse House. And that's where I think I agree with you. Disney is lacking. And I thought that maybe when Chapek was in charge, we would have maybe finally gone there, because he was all about quality over quantity. He was just pumping shit out. And I thought for sure he would try to put some stuff out that nobody's seen or heard of before, but he didn't. Even as bad as his reign was, Disney Plus and Hulu still didn't put out anything but established IP. And I think that is where, if I have any knock against them, that is it. I want to see some originality. Give me something that's not based on something that you own.
Well, and I mean, that's the thing too, because I feel like they're pushing themselves into a corner where they're kind of making their own little box of what they have, and you're not really going to deter from that box. You're not going to step outside those lines. I definitely feel like the one that is able to compete with all of the new content is Paramount. I think Paramount Plus does a great job at pumping out new content and original ideas. Definitely more homegrown, like Americana content, that's for sure. I mean, you got, like, cowboy shows basically with the Yellowstone franchise. You got mobster stuff. You have just a whole bunch of different military type things. I definitely feel like Paramount Plus is more geared towards like the older audiences, but then like in return, they're actually getting a lot of younger audiences on there as well, because we saw during the pandemic and the last couple years, with there being an oversaturation of content, a lot of these younger people who have streaming services are finding these shows on Paramount Plus, to where they are starting to establish a relationship with like CBS and Paramount. So I think that's also very interesting, because I mean, yes, Netflix has all these crazy shows like Squid Games, Wednesday, but even that's established IP.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they go out and search for already established IP to buy from other different studios and bring over to Netflix. But I think Paramount Plus is winning the race when it comes to original content. That's my opinion.
Well, yes, I agree in part to that, but okay, so like Disney, they do have some established content. They have the Star Trek universe and franchise. They have Criminal Minds. They have SpongeBob, Nickelodeon, MTV. They have established content that they do have, that they do show. But they don't rely on it like Disney does. And to be fair, I want to clarify. We understand that FX falls into the Hulu brand, and they are putting out original The Bear and different series that aren't based on IP that Disney had owned in the past. So to be fair, I don't want to say they don't put anything out like that, but it's
Right.
branded as an FX show or something, not necessarily for the streamer brand, even though it falls under their streaming. So I just wanted to touch on that. But my critique of Paramount is, outside, if CBS didn't exist, if CBS wasn't pumping out content, then really the only original stuff you have on Paramount Plus is Taylor Sheridan. While it is diverse, like you said, it is westerns, it is gangsters, it is, down in the dirt, like Lioness and Landman and stuff. It's all coming from one source.
Yeah,
and
it's very blue collar.
Yeah, if they lose Taylor Sheridan, then Paramount Plus simply becomes CBS programming, because that's what's on there. Tracker and Elsbeth and Matlock and all of the massive hits, Fire Country, that are on CBS are finding audiences on Paramount Plus that next day also, and building on their audience. So if you take away Taylor Sheridan, you're going to have to fully rely basically on either pumping out Star Trek shows nonstop or relying on CBS to create hits, because that's where your streamer is. And I feel like that's the argument that Ellison is making about getting rid of Paramount Plus. He's like, we can just put a lot of this content and they're already testing it. They're already showing Yellowstone and Tulsa King and Lioness on CBS. They're testing to see if that would work, and so far it has. It's drawn decent ratings when they show it. So I think Ellison's argument is, We don't need Paramount Plus. We can put these Taylor Sheridan shows on CBS along with our already popular CBS shows and eliminate the cost of the streamer. And so I do predict that's going to happen, but it makes sense to me. So I agree with you. I do think it's the probably, if not the best, the second best original content that we're getting. My only concern is that the original content is all coming from one source. I would like to see them be as aggressive as they are with Taylor Sheridan with other creators. Say, hey, we love what Taylor did. Who else wants to come in and build a universe of shows on our streamer, right? That type of a thing. Just branch out a little bit and give me some more creators because I like what they're doing. I just feel like they're isolating themselves with a particular just we're banking everything on this guy or this franchise, and if it doesn't work, does that make sense?
It does. It does. I do definitely feel like they put all their eggs in one basket, but I mean, if it's broke, don't fix it. I know they had a lot of negative press, over the last 2 years with Kevin Costner leaving and
Right.
Taylor Sheridan being kind of like all up in his own show, kind of looking for like, I guess a cameo, but it's like a bigger than life cameo type thing. So I always thought that was very interesting. But yeah, I do believe that Paramount and with Ellison coming in, they're going to try and figure out different routes and different avenues to where, they don't have to rely so much on one person to be successful. I think that's why you're starting to see like revitalizations of like Dexter coming back with the Dexter Resurrection, and then of course the prequel series coming out. So they're also trying to go back to their established IP, but I also don't think they're going to have it run as long as say what other streamers have their stuff run at.
So
I do think they rely too heavily on already established IP, but everybody knows that we're big believers in having new ideas and putting something new out there. But it's very interesting, and it's a back and forth thing about what makes money, but what you want the industry to keep moving forward and not looking in the rearview mirror, but you also need to generate that revenue and get that audience established to where you can have that revenue.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because I think this makes the most sense, and this is where I think Ellison is planning on going with it. He has huge hit shows on CBS right now, several of them, and they are doing well on Paramount Plus, but they don't need Paramount Plus because they are doing well on CBS, right? I think he sees more opportunity for profit and for money if you take all of the Dexters and the Criminal Minds and the all of Taylor Sheridan's stuff and license it. Let's be honest about it. All of Taylor Sheridan's shows, Criminal Minds Evolution, Dexter, they would do huge on Netflix. People would flock to them like they flock to Suits, right? So that licensing money that Paramount could get to license those properties makes more sense for profitability than for Ellison to try to keep Paramount Plus, because he doesn't need it for the CBS shows and he can license the other content. So he's paying out to keep the streamer just to say they have a streamer. That's my opinion. But I mean, we've seen NBC is a perfect example of they made a fucking boatload off of Suits once they licensed it to Netflix, and even so much so that they're debuting a new Suits series on NBC because of the success of licensing it to Netflix. So that's my thought process. I think that we are going to see the demise of Paramount Plus just because Ellison sees an opportunity for more growth and more money by licensing as opposed to paying for the streamer, if you will. That's just my thought on it. But I love the shows. I'm right there with you. I love the shows, so they're going to end up somewhere. There's no doubt about that.
Well, yeah, I mean, Dexter, the original, is already on Netflix.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with, if your prediction does come through for 2025, what are they going to do with the Taylor Sheridan shows? That's the biggest thing. Who's that going to get licensed out to? Because I could see those going either to like an NBC Universal, because you've already got like the amount of Yellowstone
original Yellowstone,
on Peacocks. streaming service, but I could also see those like the dark, gritty Tulsa King and Lioness and all like the different military stuff. I could see that going to like a Max. So it's all of these different possibilities that I feel like are endless. But I do think that all of these streamers have to get more behind the licensing because, yeah, they try to hide it and just keep it for themselves, and which in turn, like all of these studios are kind of bleeding money. I mean, of course, the only two studios that have the streaming services that are somewhat profitable are, Netflix and Disney.
Yeah,
So we
so
have
far,
to
yeah.
make sure that they're trying to continue to move forward. Like after Stranger Things is done, and with the landscape where it is right now in the entertainment industry, like I wonder if Netflix would even be open to, licensing that out. I think that would be very interesting because we've never seen that before. We've never seen Netflix license
License
out
out another,
any
yeah.
of their content to any other streamer, which is very interesting because, I think they try to hold their stature. They try to still be the number one player in town, but I think they're gonna have a point in time too where they're gonna have to license out and try to make some money off of stuff that they're no longer continuing making future seasons for.
You know, one example, a show that I think is perfect that for that very reason, I think Emily in Paris would make a fucking killing on Disney Plus. I
Mm.
think if it's that type of a genre show, that audience would flock to that show. And
Yeah.
so that's a great example. I'm right there with you. I think it's an interesting take. Would Netflix license off its original content to somewhere else? And because I think there is money opportunity there. Because there are several shows that I think, that one just as an example, but I think there are several original shows. I think The Diplomat, the one with Kerry Russell recently, would kill on Max. I think so. There are opportunities. I think you're right. That's a great point that you brought up. It'll be interesting to see if they've even thought about that. Would they be willing to? Because there are shows on there that would pick up more of an audience on different streamers. It's that's an interesting. Yeah, I love that idea. And does that create space for Netflix for more original? Because if you look at it, still the ratio of licensed to original stuff on Netflix, license still kills it. It's like 65-35,
Oh yeah.
right? It's licensed content as opposed to original. Now they're trying to balance that because a lot of their newer original stuff is foreign. They penetrated the foreign market and they're bringing in a lot of foreign shows as originals. So they're kind of balancing it because even 2 years ago it was like 90-10. Now it's at least
Yeah.
65-35. But yeah, I love that. I like that you brought that up because I think that there's an opportunity there for them to see if they can indeed license content to other people. Why not, right?
Most definitely. And I do think that, some streamers that are just now getting into it or that have been created by big tech companies like Amazon MGM Studios or Apple TV Plus, I think they are trying to be so different than what the other streamers are. Obviously, Max, Netflix, Disney Plus, they're all in their own lane. But I do feel like Amazon MGM Studios and Apple TV and Apple Studios, they are doing something that's completely different that I feel like is obviously more geared towards an older audience or a more refined, mature audience. Because the biggest show that's on Apple TV Plus right now is Severance, and I feel like that is very heavily geared towards a niche audience, somebody who's just trying to unwind after a day of craziness to watch some more craziness that isn't their life. But I think the most successful streamer or streaming studio that has been successful with films is Amazon MGM Studios. They've released Red One, which I looked back at the Nelson data, for between I think December 16th to December 22nd. It's still in the top 10 most streaming right now, and it was still released in theaters over the holiday break. But then you have Coda, who just won the Academy Award
Yeah.
for Best Picture and Best Supporting Actor a couple years ago. So I do feel like, the streaming wars are really only happening between like 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 studios, and some of the other streaming services are not even trying. They're just trying to stay in their own lane and do their own thing.
Well, see, I think that Prime has a somewhat advantage because they're putting out original films and original television series, but they also have the liberty of having the licensing or first look rights to other studios' movies. Like you can go on to Prime Video right now and rent movies that are currently playing in theaters from other studios. Right? Like a Warner Brothers picture or a Disney picture that's in theaters right now, you can go and rent it off of Prime and watch it. So you have first access to blockbuster movies at Prime. So not only are they putting out their own stuff, but you also have access to everybody else's stuff, at least temporarily, first on Amazon Prime, which gives them a huge advantage, I think. And I think they've done pretty well with original series as well. Their movies have been all pretty successful, but there's this, I mean, when you think about the recent On Call or The Boys, obviously was a massive hit. Reacher continues to be a massive hit. They're doing a spin-off of Reacher, but then Mr. and Mrs. Smith, of course, Bosch, they're getting ready to do a movie based on Jack Ryan with Krasinski. So they've seen success in the original series also. And yeah, I feel like they're just, Amazon for me is one of the ones that I do think takes risks. Like we were talking about that Disney does not. Amazon is willing to take a shot. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But they're willing to take shots to see what hits. And of course, Amazon has more money than everybody, so they can take those shots, and if they miss, they don't care. Where the other studios, it's like if they miss, they have to take the hit and the write-off. Amazon's like, yeah, fuck it. Apple too. Apple in that same boat. They're like, that didn't work. Who cares? So that's the luxury of those two streamers, right? Let's talk about that. Those tech streamers, they have money, and their money comes from a source that's not reliant on the studio or television. It's just, that's not where their money comes from. So they don't care. Whereas the other studios, that is the crux of their revenue. So they have to care. So, so speaking of Apple, I think they've done pretty well. I'm going to just say this, and I think you agree with me here. Out of all of the streamers, Apple by far has the best quality programming. They have the best original movies. They have the best original series. They don't have as many, not even close to as many as the other ones. But the ones they do have are like really, really fucking great. High production, high value, high talent from the behind the scenes and in front of the camera kind of thing. It's just they're all in and they are producing great stuff. Now, granted, that's at the expense of not producing a lot of stuff, but I'm one of those quality over quantity guys. I know. I think you think the same thing. I'd rather have Apple have 3 or 4 original series in a year compared to all the other streamers knocking out 12. If those 4 are shit that I would watch over and over and over and over and over again, right?
Well, yeah, most definitely. I also do feel like, all of their projects that they put out are critically acclaimed. Some of their movies that they've put out have been a little
Yeah.
but I mean, that's kind of been the whole landscape of the streaming industry.
Right.
The movies are very 50-50, a solid C- across the whole streaming landscape. But for the television shows, every streamer has a hit television show that does really well.
Yeah.
So it's always very interesting to see, at where we're at in the entertainment industry. Streaming services, I think, are just supposed to take over cable. They're supposed to replace cable and not even worry about television or not even worry about films. Unless, I would even be fine if they just did like, you know, two or three movies a quarter, to where they're not putting out as many bad projects rather than, good projects. So
Right.
I think that's what's most important, just trying to figure out what is the best possible thing. But then on the flip side of that, like we said, Apple TV, we definitely feel like has the most quality over quantity. But I think, honestly, in my opinion, it's a tie between Netflix and this past Disney, because obviously we know we've talked about it multiple times. Disney's riding the ship, trying to make it more quality over quantity,
Yeah.
but where they're currently at and where it was at the past, 3 to 5 years, it was a lot of quantity. So I think it's a tie for me between Netflix and Disney for the most quantity projects that they put out there that don't go anywhere. The only thing that I can say positive about Netflix doing that is that they at least tell you that your season is canceled after one season, right? Because I mean, we watched the Turner and Hooch reboot with Josh Peck on
Yeah.
Disney Plus, and there was never really any press about that thing being
Nope.
canceled.
Nope.
All the Star Wars stuff, it's kind of like in limbo whether or not they bring certain things back or not. So I'll say that. I'll say Netflix is at least better at communicating when things are canceled or not, because that's my one big gripe with Disney Plus. Like sometimes you'll get really into a show, and unless it's a hit, you don't know whether or not it's coming back for a second season,
Or
which is very, very frustrating.
even if it is a hit, which you would
Yeah,
have think that Disney would have learned from Netflix, because Netflix was notorious for canceling fan favorite hit shows after
right.
one season. It's like, wait a minute, this is killing it. Why are you getting rid of it? But I feel like that's true. Turner and Hooch, Doogie Kamahala,
Yep.
like they had several Mighty Ducks. They had
Yep.
shows that were huge hits that they still canceled, and it's
Yep.
like that was a huge mistake that Netflix made. That now I feel like they're reversing that trend. You see the Diplomat, the Emily in Paris, Cobra Kai, Stranger Things. They're like, wait a minute, we're not going to get rid of them after one season. We're going to give all these shows longevity now, right? I feel like they learned from that mistake where Disney Plus is still kind of like, do we? And even their big ones, they're like, they literally admitted that Ahsoka, not Ahsoka. What was the one with Kiki Palmer, the Star Wars show that just came with Kiki Palmer? You know which one I'm talking about? The Acolyte. They admitted that that brought in huge numbers for them, that the ratings were big, it saw a massive success. They canceled it because they felt it was too expensive and not worth it. Like, but but you said it brought in massive numbers, so can't you make it worth it? But yeah, Alan Bergman came out and said it just was, we felt too expensive. Then ditch something that isn't working and use that money to keep something that is working. That is where I think everybody is still trying to figure it out. It's like, how do we stay profitable and or become profitable? Is that we eliminate all expensive shows and only go with the cheaper ones? Do we only put out a couple of shows and make them expensive, but not, it's they're all still trying to find that, how do we either get or stay profitable? And we're 10 years in, basically, other than Netflix, which has been around long. But we're basically closing in on, 5 to 7 to 10 years in on some of these streamers, and they're still trying to figure it out. And I don't know, man. I love it. I mean, there's so much stuff out there. I mean, you and I talk about all the time, all of the stuff that we're watching and all of the stuff that's coming. But at some point, it's like, I feel like there has to be some movement. Like Max. Okay, I understand that Max, if you look, you can see some of the Food Network shows or the Discovery shows and stuff, but they also have their own streamer, Food Network Go and Discovery Plus, kind of thing. So you don't have to go to Max to watch those shows. So if you really look at it, Max is relying on Warner Brothers content. It's mostly Warner Brothers films, their library of Warner Brothers films, and then the shows. HBO shows, DC shows, even CW shows. Without that, then what is Max, right? Because everything else, you could just go to the individual. You could go to Discovery or Food Network or whatever to stream those shows. So I think they're like in the same boat of Disney, where they're relying on their library of content to funnel content in there and not giving us a whole lot of original stuff outside of that. So what happens there, and Zaslav is still in control and he's still kind of iffy. Sometimes something that fans want on there, he gets rid of and then puts shit on there that they don't want on there. And so I think that, Penguin being a huge example, That was a massive hit. Everybody wants more of that, and yet they're not going to. What? So it's one of those, like, I think, like the consumer, the studios are trying to figure it out. What works, what doesn't, what do we like, what do we not like? They're in the same boat kind of as the consumers. Unfortunately, as a consumer, you're not in control. So it's like...
Yeah, most definitely. And I'm doing a little research on, Mac's original programming. And really the only big one I would say is the the flight attendant. I think that was the biggest one for their original programming. Like, I mean, there's some other ones, obviously, the Gossip Girl, but that came from already established IP. Pretty
Right.
Little Liars came from already established IP. So they're Hacks. I mean, I would say Hacks is probably their biggest one now. But yeah, I don't know, man. I really feel like a lot of them still rely on a lot of that established IP. And I also have a little
Absolutely.
correction: Amanda Steinberg, not Kiki Palmer.
Oh,
Only
yeah.
Amanda
Thank you.
Steinberg,
Thank you. Thank you.
for Star Wars Acolyte. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I just don't know, man, because yeah, Warner Brothers and Max, they're relying so heavily on HBO. Disney, they're relying so heavily on Marvel and Star Wars for their adult content, and then they merge with Hulu. So that's always kind of an interesting thing too, because I guess now, I mean, we do have to kind of bundle and combine them as one, but it's still like there's not a lot of original programming when it comes to the major studios that have, linear television outlets when it comes to their streamers, because they're just so reliant on, next day streaming. That's their whole streaming plan, I feel
Yes.
like, right now. Their whole marketing, their whole distribution plan is the next day streaming. I mean, you have Stars. Stars is kind of a little underrated and more edgy and more like grounded to the streets, kind of like with the whole Power franchise and the universe that 50 Cent created. But then you also have like Outlander, which is a little bit out there, but is kind of more for a niche audience. So it's hard to figure out what is going to help these streamers be more successful and what's going to leave them behind, because we already know that Stars is one of those streamers that's about to probably get
Well,
eaten up by
because
another one.
it's owned by Lionsgate, and
Yeah.
Lionsgate's about to sell. So what happens to Stars at that point? I will say that I think Stars, out of all of them, took the most shots.
Yeah, I
They
agree.
took risk. If you look at Heels, if you look at the Power franchise, if you look at BMF, they took chances.
Yeah.
That this would either be huge or they'd take a lot of heat for it and it would be crap. And so I credit them. They took a lot of risk and it paid off for them, I think, in good ways. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who scoops up Stars' content, and once Lionsgate sells, because it's going to be very interesting. And speaking of what you were just saying about relying on network content for next day, watch it the next day. Now, granted, Disney takes huge advantage of that with Hulu because, but I feel like out of all the streamers, Peacock is built on that. The
Yeah.
majority of Peacock's content is NBC shows that people watch the next day.
Hmm.
And with the exception of a couple here or there original series, it's 95% NBC content that people are going and watching on Peacock the next day. And so how can they break that? How can they get past that? Because even a lot of their original series is just content from other, like Hallmark. The Way Home's huge, but it's a Hallmark content, and they just happen to be able to have the deal between the two to show it. So it's like, in my opinion, Peacock needs to find a way to generate original content and not rely on NBC to pump content to them, because and they're still like not like, where the fuck is Law and Order Organized Crime? They made the decision to move it to Peacock. Where is it? They went out of their way to say this won't affect anything, even though it's not playing back to back to back with the other Law and Orders. It's still going to do crossover episodes. The storylines between them will still merge and everything. Nothing's going to change except that it'll be on Peacock. And yet, we're more than halfway through the season on Law and Order and Law and Order SVU, and organized crime has been nowhere in sight. And yet they were supposed to have crossover episodes. And so, like, what are you doing? It's those type things that make it confusing to me. It's like, if you're going to use your IP to generate viewership on your streamer, you can't have the IP disappear. Like, you gotta commit to it. A lot of people were like, okay, I'm going to follow organized crime to Peacock, and then they haven't seen it. And you know, so it just goes back to me like saying, like we always talk about, it's like, even after all this time, they are still just trying to figure out what to do. And you know, at some point, guys, you gotta have your shit together, because we can't be 20 years into streaming services and still have you trying to figure out what to do. Like, I don't know, man.
Like, yeah, I mean, it really like poses the question: is cable ever going to go away? Because streamers rely so heavily on cable right now. That's the biggest thing. So I don't know. I really don't, because Netflix is kind of the only one in its own lane still doing its thing. Of course, we're super excited about, you know, all the Marvel shows that they're about to have coming out, and I mean that's going to be super badass. Even though it is just a piggyback off of what Netflix had, so it's all very interesting, man, and it's a very interesting landscape. But yeah, I just wanted to have this episode because streamers are very successful when it comes to television shows. So it's very curious to pick each other's brain to see who's winning, who's losing, who do we think has the most quality content, who do we think is, you know, in the race of becoming the biggest streamer. But I mean, currently, I still think it's Netflix. I still think they're leading the way. And I think another thing that's also pulling them away from everyone else is the serial killer documentaries and the serial killer stories.
Yeah, yeah.
Freaking, everybody loves that shit. So I don't know how other streaming services try to hop on that one too.
So I'm going to be honest with you. The streaming service that I watch the most, and this might come as a huge surprise to people because I literally predicted its demise this year, is Paramount Plus. But I will say that if Taylor Sheridan's shows were to disappear off Paramount Plus, I wouldn't watch it. I wouldn't even have it. I wouldn't pay for it because I can watch my favorite CBS shows on CBS. And the only other thing I tune into Paramount Plus for is all the Taylor Sheridan. I'm hooked on all of those shows. Now, I will watch this. I do like Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and, you know, so I'll occasionally check out Star Trek stuff on there too. But primarily, I am on there for Taylor Sheridan shows. So if he were to go away, I think I'd just watch CBS and move on. So there you go. That emphasizes my point of all their eggs are in one basket. Like, that is my most watched streamer, but because of one creator. So if that one creator goes, I'm out of there. I'm canceling my subscription. So Paramount needs to be aware of that, because I'm betting 60-70% of the people that have Paramount Plus are watching Taylor Sheridan shows. So, you know, you got to be aware of that. So, and I don't know. Yeah, I think what's your most watched streamer? Where do you find yourself most at?
I would probably say Netflix or Hulu or Paramount Plus, just because of the whole Dexter stuff. Because I was watching all of Dexter on Netflix because of that license agreement, but now I'm on New Blood, which is on Paramount Plus. But Hulu, I think Hulu is just the most comfortable one that I'm just so adapt to just automatically putting on first to try to run through. Because some of these streaming services, and this is completely different from the television side that we're talking about, but some of these streaming services are very weird to navigate. I hate how Paramount Plus doesn't have a search bar. You have to search it through either your Roku channel or like through the Apple search bar. But once you get into Paramount Plus, there's no search bar. You cannot search for something in that app, which I think is very annoying. But you know, it's all. I feel like Hulu is the easiest to navigate, in my opinion, and I don't like the new update that Netflix did to theirs. I thought it was kind of weird, but
Agreed.
yeah,
But is Hulu your most watched though? Because like you're not going to watch Hulu series though, right? You're like
no,
catching FX series, or you're catching ABC shows, or you're
yeah,
catching even like. And this is why I feel bad for kind of like Paramount Plus or whatever, and probably also is playing into Ellison's decision. They're putting like you can also watch Tracker on Hulu or Elsbeth on Hulu,
yeah,
not just even Paramount Plus next day, but on Hulu. So
yeah,
you don't even need now, granted, not all of CBS's shows are on Hulu yet, but clearly with the deal with Tracker and they're headed that way, so you
they
don't
are.
even need Paramount Plus to watch CBS shows. Yeah. So yeah, I get it. I mean, I'm at Hulu a lot too, but I'm going to watch other shows from other networks. I'm
Yeah.
like that's kind of where I'm at with that. The other thing, can I just say this because I really want to get this off my chest because most of the streamers do this and I fucking hate it. I don't need when I'm done watching a show to have another one pop up because like sometimes you're busy. Like sometimes you just finished watching a show and you get up, you have to run to the bathroom, or maybe you had something in the microwave, you got to go get it, and it'll automatically start another show. And it's a show you don't fucking even want to watch, and then it's stuck in your watch list. And a couple of the streamers won't let you get it off of your watch list. The only way is you have to keep fast forwarding through all the episodes to get to the latest episode so that it won't show up. I don't just if you're gonna keep the shit where it automatically starts a new show, let me get rid of it if I don't want to watch it. That's all I'm saying. It's one or the other. Don't keep doing that. Or if you're gonna keep doing that, let me get rid of it if I don't. I fell asleep one night during one of my shows that I watch, and apparently the episode finished, and it started a new series, and now I can't get rid of the fucking series. Peacock, I'm talking to you, and I have to keep fast forwarding through that fucking episode every week so that it doesn't show up. And I'm just like, give me an option to where I can go in and remove it off my watch list without having to clear your entire watch history, right? Because that's a pain in the ass. Half the time, I don't even remember all the shows I watch on a certain streamer. If I clear my whole history, I'm going to have to go in and go, do I want? Oh yeah, I watched that one. I watched that one. Like I don't want to do that. I just want to get rid of the show I don't fucking want to watch. Sorry, I had to get that off my chest if we're talking about streamers because that is a legit pain in the ass. I'm just saying.
And I completely agree. Completely agree. It's going to be an interesting landscape this year, and see what streamers decide to do and how they continue moving forward. But yeah, it's a
Yes.
very interesting concept that we definitely wanted to explore. But now we're headed over to our top 5 segment, man. And this
Woo.
week it is top 5 television series that we fear may be canceled this year. And some of mine on my list are not even on yet, but they look exciting. They look enticing, but I fear that they're not gonna go anywhere.
Well, that's not good.
I know, but I can't trust any of these networks anymore because like Council of Dads and a couple of other ones that I fall in love with these shows, but then they go away so quickly because like you don't give it time to establish an audience. Um,
Yeah, because you said that Council of Dads, Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. NBC, you're struggling with Peacock with original content, right? You're fucking Law and Order organized. That's 2 shows you could have plucked over onto Peacock that people would have like been driven to. They loved those shows. They would have been
True.
huge there, and yet you just got rid of them altogether. What the fuck? Look at the Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist Christmas movie on Roku. That shit did fucking massive numbers. If you had just kept that show and put it on Peacock, boom. That's all I'm saying. Like, it's all I'm saying. Like, oops.
That's it, man. That's it.
All right.
Well, my number 5 for this top 5 segment is On Call. And this one is a Amazon Prime series.
Yes.
Now, I only watched a couple of episodes with my wife because she had it on in the background, but it seemed very interesting. And then there's 30-minute episodes, and on IMDb it has a 7.7 rating out of 10, obviously. And it follows a pair of police officers on patrol as they respond to a new radio call arriving to the scene to resolve incidents. Duh. So they're following police officers who may or may not be dirty or who are trying to lean more into their new life and get away from their past life. And it's always so interesting to dive into these crazy backstoried characters who are trying to escape their past. And I think that's what this show is trying to do. So the worry that I have with this one is it doesn't really have a lot of promotion, not a lot of marketing, but Amazon's kind of bad at some of that with their lower shows. And it feels very low budget to me, even though the writing is good and it's a good storyline, but it feels very low budget. And sometimes like their camera shots are very weird. But yeah, I think I'm worried about that one for my wife, so I wanted to put that on the list. Number 5 for me, On Call.
I watched it. I finished it. I loved it. I thought the
Yeah.
storytelling was fantastic. I kind of liked the weird, gritty camera shots sometimes. I don't know. I'm just a little weird like that. But you're right. Amazon is horrible at marketing. This is a Dick Wolf series, y'all. That like that should be a no-brainer. A Dick Wolf law-oriented show is a no-brainer. It should be a huge hit. But they didn't market it very well. Like, you're right. I think it might be, I hope not, but I think you might be right with its cancellation. But I think this is one that would find a home on Peacock because NBC has such a good relationship with Dick Wolf that I feel like they would scoop that show up and at least give it another season just to kind of see. So
Or is it Elliot Wolf?
Elliot
Are
Wolf
they
created it, but it's a Dick
okay?
Wolf production. Yeah, Wolf
Interesting.
Entertainment.
Very
It
cool.
falls under Dick Wolf, but
Nice.
yeah, yep. So yeah, I feel like they have such that established relationship that if that one were to get canceled at Prime, NBC might pick it up and give it a shot.
Right.
My number 5, and I think it's just been heading here for a couple of seasons, and that's because of the death of the main character. I think once that happened, the showrunners tried desperately to continue the story going, but it just wasn't working. And then this latest season, they brought in new showrunners to try to change the course of the storyline, and that didn't seem to work either. And while it didn't tank horribly in the ratings, I just feel like I don't know if people will continue to still try to hang on for much longer if they can't figure out a way to change the direction of the story without that main character. And my number 5 is The Cleaning Lady on Fox. I loved it. Brilliant show. And the downward spiral that it took had nothing to do with the show. It's hard to overcome the loss of your star. Like it was an unexpected death. They were in production on the season already. They had to figure out a way, one, to not show him in the rest of that season, and then try to figure out all these arcs that they had set up for the next season don't work now because he's not there. So they had to try to figure out how to do that. So unfortunately, I think this is going to be a cancellation due to no fault of their own. It's just going to be one of those things that sadly can no longer work because of the situation. And that's sad because the cast is really good. And it looked like it was going to be an amazing story that could have probably played out 5, 6, 7 seasons. But I feel like they gave it their best effort, and I don't see it. So I'm a little worried this one's gonna say bye-bye.
Makes sense, man. It makes sense. Number 4 for me goes to one that's not out yet. It is another new series that I'm very interested to see. CBS's and Paramount's own Watson. And this one, of course, has Timothy O'Brien in it. I mean, amazing star, and he's very solid and can carry a show. But the premise is a year after the death of his friend and partner Sherlock Holmes, Dr. John Watson resumes his medical career at a clinic dedicated to the treatment of rare diseases. However, he soon finds that his old life is not yet done with him. I put this one on the list because I'm always afraid to get attached to new shows because they'll be here and gone in like 2 seconds. So that's pretty much why I went with that. And it's a little bit different than I feel like all the other things that CBS and Paramount is kind of doing right now because it's like established IP but kind of with a new concept, and then plus John Watson I don't believe has ever been a black character, so I'm very hopeful that this is going to be a new line of representation when it comes to the African American community. But I'm also hoping that fucking racist assholes don't make it a big thing, like blah blah blah, like he's not black, but whatever. It's not that big of a deal.
Right.
So yeah, I'm worried about the show being on the bubble just because of viewership and being a new show and getting out there. But I'm excited. I want to watch the first episode. I did start a new show this year called Doc, and I know you started it as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
It's a great freaking show. I've literally cried at the first two
Oh
episodes.
my gosh. Yeah.
If y'all haven't checked that one out yet, please be sure to do so. But yeah, number 4 for me goes to Watson.
So, and it'll be interesting to see if this is a one and done, because if I'm not mistaken, they did try to do something similar to this. CBS did a few years back with Lucy Liu, where it was
Right.
based on Sherlock Holmes, and
Yeah, I
for
remember
whatever reason did not click. It didn't hit with
Yeah.
audiences. This is taking a risk because they're killing Sherlock, like right
Yeah.
from the get go. Sherlock's
Exactly.
dead. So even that's kind of, because I think there's always, if he's alive, there's always the, ooh, is he going to show up? Is he
Right.
going to at some point go, what are you doing, man? Why are you kind of dead? But with no shot of Sherlock showing up, that's interesting to see if that'll be a plus or a minus right out of the gate for that show. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see if that's a one and done or not. My number 4 came out gangbangers. It like was slaying in the ratings. The second season, the ratings dropped a little bit, so I'm a little concerned. That's why I'm saying I don't know if, but I feel like there's a chance that we could see it go. I'm talking about Accused on Fox. It's such a great show. Basically, it opens up and the people are in court and they're on trial, and then it goes backwards and shows you the events leading up to why they're in court being accused of what they're being accused of. And sometimes the show plays out to where they were completely innocent and they were wrongfully charged, and it plays out. Other times it shows that they were absolutely they're guilty, and they kind of thing. So it's a very original concept. I know it's based on a foreign show, British, I think. It plays out really well. It's a nice crime procedural with a little twist on the way they do things. So I'm not quite sure. I think it might have been a victim of it got bounced around on the timeline a little bit, so people were having a hard time finding it. But I'm hoping now with Hulu, because you can watch it, it kind of saves the audience, and maybe we see a little resurgence again, because it's a really creative show. And a lot of our friends and former guests have been on it. So it's solid. The acting is brilliant. The storytelling is good week in and week out. And so I hope that I'm wrong. I hope this thing finds an audience and can build back up to the season 1 numbers, because it's a really good show. But yeah, number 4, Accused. I think it's on the bubble, and I'm hoping it survives. I really am, because I love it. I think it's a great show.
For sure, man, for sure. Another one that's surprisingly on the bubble is Family Guy. But also The Simpsons, Bob Burgers, like a lot of the adult animated shows, either for Fox or, Disney, they're all kind of like trying to figure out where they go next. I'm hopeful that all of them are going to get renewed, because you're always going to need adult animated comedies to make fun of the world that you're in right now. And obviously, I've said this multiple times, Family Guy is one of the big reasons why I've always wanted to write an adult animated series. That's kind of, the inspiration behind the Bonks Bar project that we are working on. So I'm always terrified that this thing will go away, because I'm hoping, I don't know if it ever will, because I don't know if Simpsons will ever go off the air.
No.
But I'm hoping Family Guy will catch Simpsons one day if it does go off the air. But yeah, number 3 for me, Family Guy.
Interesting. Yeah. Listen, I'm just gonna say it. I think that unless Fox goes away, right? Family Guy. I mean, The Simpsons is gonna be like what Supernatural was for the CW. Right. To be fair, now, new ownership came in for the CW, so it was going to kind of fuck that up. But basically, back in the day, the CW, the management of CW is basically like, the boys are going to be on the air until they don't want to be. And I truly believe with Fox, that is The Simpsons. That show will go until they don't want to do it anymore. And because for as long as it's been on, it's still slaying in the ratings and the people love it. And so I don't see that thing going anywhere until the cast goes, we're tired. We don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah,
but
right.
at this point, they make so much fucking money. Why would they ever say that?
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, my number 3, and I think because of what you just said with Family Guy and some of the other animated series, is trying to figure out where they're going to go next. That's why I think this one could potentially be coming close to its end, which I hate, but I get it, because it has, in my opinion, over the last season or so, become somewhat repetitive. And so I'm talking about Emily in Paris. And you guys, this is my guilty pleasure. I fucking love this show. I know it's a total chick flick show. I know it's a show that I probably shouldn't even fucking want to watch, but I love this fucking show. Maybe it's Lily Collins, because I've always been a huge fan of Lily Collins, but I just really, really, really enjoy this show. And so for me to say, even, it's kind of getting repetitive. And I know there was like, let's move it out of Paris. Let's have Emily get promoted and go somewhere else, kind of a thing. And then Paris was like, fuck you. And we want that, money coming in. Exactly. And so it's back in Paris, kind of thing. But yeah, I think anytime a show gets repetitive, you're basically telling the same storyline, but with a different love interest, or kind of a thing. It usually sees its ending. Right. And so, and I have just, my fear is that that's where Emily in Paris is at right now. We're kind of seeing the same storyline, just with different love interests, and we're kind of like, we've seen it play out. So either drastically change up the storyline, or I think it's going to bite the dust. Emily in Paris. I hate to say that, because it's been 5 years and I love the show, but yeah.
Yeah, very understandable, man. Very understandable. Number 2 for me goes to Animal Control. That one's on Fox. Of course, this is the one with Joe McHale.
Yes.
This one is on the bubble. I would hate to see it go away, because it was a brand new comedy that came out during pandemic times, to where people were starting to laugh again and starting to get over their fears of going outside. But I could see this one going away, because Joe McHale is starting to do more film projects. He just got announced to be in Scream 7. So
are you okay with that, by the way? Have you recovered? Is it he's taking the place of your man crush, bro?
It's fine. It's fine. My man crush is in the new Dexter.
Okay, all right, so okay.
Fine.
So we'll go with scheduling conflict then, and not that Dempsey was asking for too much money, because I know there were talks. So I don't know what happened, but
yeah, so I think, that's a big thing, because Joe McHale is very talented. He's very funny, and he's actually a really good actor.
Yeah.
So I could see this one staying on for the next couple of years, but I also could see it potentially ending, because he wants to move on to, bigger roles in the film game. So that would be very interesting. But yeah, number 2 for me, Animal Control.
There you go. My number 2, and it should make total sense because of our conversation about the streamers, and why do I think it's going to be canceled? Because we haven't fucking seen it yet. It hasn't come back yet. I'm talking about Law and Order Organized Crime. NBC, where is it? Just stab me in the heart and tell me you're canceling it, or put it on, because I miss it. I want to watch it. It's driving me crazy. My number 2, Law and Order Organized Crime, and it's going to upset me, because it's a really fucking fantastic show. It's as good as the other Law and Orders, hands down, no doubt. I think this one it's the time frame, how they kind of, it would miss a week here, it would miss a week there. It wasn't consistent. So when it was following the Law and Order SVU Organized Crime, you'd get Law and Order SVU, and then sometimes you'd miss a week of so I think it was a victim there. My only hope is here, because I think that Elliot there, I think that relationship has kind of been mended. So I think that if we do see the demise of organized crime, Elliot will pop back up on SVU. He will just come back to SVU, and maybe even a couple of other characters from Organized Crime could make in and outs on S, because they have established that. And a lot of the characters in Organized Crime, like Elliot's mom and the brothers, and they have been either highlighted during SVU, or been mentioned in SVU. So it wouldn't be odd for them to all of a sudden come into the SVU world, especially the mom. She was featured in at least 6, 7, 8 episodes of SVU while Elliot was still a star on there. So, I think I sadly think it's going to bite the dust, but I'm really hoping that he just transitions over back to because they've been building the tension in their relationship between Elliot and Olivia the whole time, as in we're finally gonna get it. And if you just cancel the show and then he just goes away again, it's going to be like, no. You can't do that to us. He's met the kid. He's fond of the kid. He gave her the little keepsake. It's like, I love you. You know I've always loved you. You can't just rip them apart from us again. That's all I'm saying. So if you cancel the fucking show, put him on SVU. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, that's my number 2.
My number 1 goes to Dexter Resurrection. I'm worried about this one just because, again, bringing a new show back, and this is the second. I don't know. It really hasn't been clear if this is going to be a limited series or if they're just coming back to continue trying it again, kind of like how they did with the Bosch and Bosch Legacy, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of unclear. And I also am worried about, the younger audience and audiences that are just now being exposed to Dexter, if they're even going to care about this storyline, because I got into this back in July and I didn't realize how many spin-offs there have been. There's also been small other projects like Blood Spatter, and obviously the spin-off New Blood, the sequel limited series after the original series, and now there's a prequel. So I'm worried that with this one, people are going to be too overwhelmed to try to jump back into this. Or at least if you're a new viewer, you'd be too overwhelmed to try to catch up to finally get to the spot where this new one's at. And I hope, I know it was very successful in its time, and I'm hoping it still has that built-in established audience. But like I said before, I feel like I can't trust the streamers or the studios with any project when it comes to television. So that's my big reasoning. I would love to see it continue on for so many years, and the creatives and writers and Michael C. Hall, they all seem very excited about it. They actually just filmed the first day of production, I think either today or yesterday. So that's very exciting, but I'm hoping it sticks around for a couple seasons. But yeah, number 1 for me, Dexter Resurrection.
Dude, I'm right there with you. I agree with everything you just said, but I really do hope it sticks around. I'm all in on it because I've watched all of the other ones and I'm ready for this one. And so I hope it survive. I do. I'd like to see it have a decent run, but we'll see. My number 1 is the current Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. What do I mean by that? This is a show that has a phenomenal cast, phenomenal writing, phenomenal directing. Everything about the show is brilliant. Came flying out of the gates with massive numbers, got renewed right away, was slaying, just like Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. And then NBC did to this show exactly what they did to Zoe's, started bouncing it from night to night to different times to different, and nobody could find it. And so in season 2, the ratings started to drop because it's like, what night is it on? Oh, it's on this night now. So and then you tune in at a time. Oh, wait, it's a different time now. Kind of. This show, I fear, is going to be canceled for the exact same reason that Zoe got canceled, because it lost its audience because NBC fucked it. And I think that's going to happen to this show, and I'm going to be pissed. I'm talking about Found. Brilliant show. This is about missing people, not just missing children, but missing people. And it's about a woman who was kidnapped and was missing for a long time and finally broke free from her captor and got away and spends her life now making sure that never happens again while having her kidnapper locked in the basement. Yes, she kidnapped her kidnapper. But then he gets out, and now it's like a... And so, but anyway, it's the cast is phenomenal. Week in and week out, I'm crying my eyes out. They're delivering Emmy-winning performances every week on this show. So, I just think it's another victim of like what they did to Zoe. If you have a hit show and it's doing gangbang in the numbers, don't move it. Keep it where it's at and don't touch it. Like I will never understand NBC and why they do that. It's not just Zoe's. They've done that to several hit series they fucked up. And I don't. Who's running that ship? Because you're fucking things up. Like, But anyway, yeah, my number one Found. And I'm like, please, don't do it. Give it legs. Give it a third season, because if the ratings drop, you caused it. So give it a third season and let it rebound. Put it in a spot where it's going to do well and don't touch it. That's all I'm saying. It's like fucking great show, man.
Exactly. Well, we want to know what what television shows do you think are going to get canceled this year? Or are you scared that they're going to get canceled? Be sure to comment below down in the comment section. Let us know on Instagram, Threads, X, all the good places. We love the fan interaction, man. And then, of course, we're heading over to the box office recap. Den of Thieves did actually better than a lot of people thought it was going to. This is the second installment, Pantera. That came in at number one with $16 million. Mufasa. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, do you know that's Eric Braden's son who directed that?
Oh, really?
He directed the first one, too. Yep.
Nice. His own little established franchise.
Yeah, by the way, looks like an exact fucking clone of his dad, like young. Like, that dude looks like just like his dad. But nobody knows it's Eric Braden's kid because he uses his real name, like the German name. And so, like, nobody associates it, but that's who it is. Right. That's who the director is.
That's funny. Number two was Mufasa, the Lion King, with $13 million. Number three was Sonic the Hedgehog 3 with $11 million. Number four was Nosferatu with $6.8 million. And number five was Moana 2 with $6.5 million. New movies coming out this week in select theaters near you. We got Wolfman. Everybody thinks this film is going to put Blumhouse back on top of the horror game. But then I also just saw that Rotten Tomatoes gave it like a 55% splat. So, but it actually I think it looks good and it looks scary.
It does.
So I definitely want to see it. No matter where we're at when it comes to the horror genre, the prosthetics in these horror films are freaking A1.
Yeah.
I went and saw Nosferatu, and Bill Skarsgård did not look anything like Bill Skarsgård.
No.
And I saw the trailer for Wolfman while I was there to see Nosferatu, and like it just looks so freaking good, man. The prosthetics right now in the entertainment industry are crazy.
I just want one that will genuinely fucking make me jump out of my seat. You know, they do these jump scares, but I have yet to see a recent modern horror movie that the jump scare actually made me fucking jump.
Right.
Just give me one that I actually go, oh shit, that's I just want one horror movie that makes me jump. Like, that's it. That's all I want.
That's it. One of Them Days is also coming out September 5th. Wish You Were Here and Emergency.
Yes.
And then, of course, movies you can still go see right now are Anora, The Wild Robot, The Substance, Baby Girl, and Conclave in select theaters near you. And then, of course, heading over to the IMDb Pros Top Trending segment. The top trending movie is Nosferatu. I mean, so many people are freaking talking about it, man. It's a good movie. I liked it. It's way better than The Lighthouse. If you guys don't know, it's the same director. I watched The Northman, and I enjoyed The Northman. So I feel like every movie I'm watching of this guy, it's getting better and better. So I will at least say that.
Maybe he just needed to get Lighthouse out of his system. Maybe that was just one of these things,
because
you know.
I talk a lot about rewatch value, and I would rewatch Nosferatu. Like, I thought it was really good.
Yeah.
Top trending TV show is obviously still Squid Game, still rocking and rolling with that. That's one that I kind of want to jump on this year and see what to think about it, because it's obviously a huge success and it's a phenomenon. So gotta check that one out. And then, of course, the top trending star is Audrey Plaza after the past of her husband, which is super sad why she is number one star.
Right. I always hate when they trend in whether they die or if it's somebody involved. You know, it's unfortunate. But Makes sense.
Yeah, Lynch will be next week. Watch. Lynch
Oh
will
yeah,
be
no
next
doubt. Yeah.
So
We can
crazy,
already
man.
predict that. Top trending star, David Lynch. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for getting crazy with us on episode 281 of ITCAF Podcast. We appreciate you. Anything you do to support us here at Crazy Ant Media, we thank you for that. We really do. We wouldn't be able to do that without any of you. So y'all are amazing. But be sure to follow us on social media. This podcast at ITCAF Podcast, our mental health podcast at Everything's OKP. New episode coming out next week. And then, of course, the company is at Crazy Ant Media. And then you can follow us both personally on social media. Myself at J Logan Austin and
At Crazy Ant CEO.
yes, we love the fan interaction, so please never hesitate to reach out. We love having conversations with like-minded people.
Always.
And then, of course, subscribe to this podcast anywhere you listen to your podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Stitcher, and so much more. And if you're watching this video on YouTube, thank you. Hit that like button below, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for all the latest and greatest notifications coming out of Crazy Ant Media. And then, of course, last but not least, be sure to head over to our website, www.crazyantmedia.com, where we have a little bit of something for a little bit of everybody. Be sure to check that out and follow us on social media so you know when promotional sales are, because they happen multiple times a month, and we want to make sure you don't have to pay full price for anything. So be sure to follow us so you know when those sales are. But yeah, man, this was a whole lot of fun. I like, because we decided to make this decision for the industry news segment because a lot of stuff is still being heavily affected by the fires out in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And, there wasn't really a lot of industry news to dive deep into this week. So we're playing with the ideas of coming up with different topics to talk about that are ever evolving and ever ongoing in the entertainment industry, and I like this concept. I think it's pretty fun.
Yeah, I think it works really well for slow weeks, and sometimes it happens, whether it's strikes or fires or whatever, and I think it'll be fun to just pick a topic and go for it when there's not a lot of news happening. I think, I really enjoyed this week's show. I like diving deep sometimes into things that we talk about all the time, but just put it out there for everybody and go, yeah, here's what we think. What do you think? Kind of a thing. And I'm hoping that when we do that, when we decide to do that for certain episodes and everything, that we will see a lot of you guys tell us what you think. Enter in, get into the conversation, because everybody's got an opinion about streamers. So tell us what you think. Really open up, and we will interact with you. We will go back and forth with you if you come at us with your comments and thoughts, and that's what we love. So really really fun week. Really fun week. I liked it.
Most definitely. And of course, as always, everybody knows we love the one, the only
Oprah.